But let's get right to everything that is breaking this morning. And I think before we get to the details, let's just say top line, both on the political front, the economic front, and the military front, this has gone pretty poorly for Russia.
Yeah, that's right.
But that actually creates a very dangerous situation. There's a concept called gambling for resurrection, where when you have someone like this who is backed into a corner, it only raises the stakes of the tactics that they could employ, both on the battlefield, also in terms of cyber attacks to hit here. Also, we're going to get to an elevated nuclear threat coming from Putin, which might be the most significant thing to focus on today. But let's start with what we know of what is happening militarily on the ground in Ukraine. Of everything we're going to bring you today, these are the reports that you should be a little bit wary of, just because it is very hard to get good information out of the middle of the war. You also have two sides that are interested in propaganda wins. And I would say the Ukrainian and their allied sides have a bit of a propaganda advantage in that the Russians sold this as a peacekeeping mission for their people. So it makes it harder for them to go out and tout battlefield wins when they're supposed to be there just keeping the peace. All right, let's throw that first tweet there up on the screen. We got some information yesterday from the mayor of Kyiv that Kyiv was surrounded and a siege had begun. That information has now been walked back. However, the best we can tell is there's satellite imagery of Russian forces massing 3 miles long outside of Kyiv, about 30 kilometers, 20 kilometers outside of the city. Those forces have been attempting to advance. So far, the Ukrainian military has been able to push them back. There are also reports that they had sent reconnaissance teams into the city that the Ukrainians were also able to intercept. Let's go ahead and put this next piece up on the screen. So this is a map of Ukraine that shows where Russian forces are. You have down in the south, I'm sort of starting in the south and going up counterclockwise. Melitopol was taken by the Russians, but progress there to the east to Mariupol has been halted. There is some reporting that is because of supply line issues. There's reports on the ground of Russians who are basically stranded, who run out of fuel, that they didn't effectively plan in order to make sure that they had their troops supplied and provisioned and gassed up so that they could continue this advance. You also have reports that Russian forces were expelled from Ukraine's second largest city, that is Kharkiv. But the very latest this morning is that, and this gets to the escalating tactics that you could see here, Russians have escalated in Kharkiv, and there are reports this morning of massive rocket attacks and potential significant civilian loss of life. And that is part of the story that we're going to be watching here, is that Russians, their tactics have been horrific, but they have not thrown everything at this that they could in an attempt to perhaps limit the amount of civilian loss of life. Well, with them stymied on a couple of different fronts militarily, and this having not gone as quickly and as easily as Putin thought, that raises the prospect of more aggressive, more deadly weapons and techniques, and that is a potential sign of what's happening in Kharkiv right now. Also, if we could put that map back up on the screen, A2, back up for one more minute. With regards to Kyiv, where so far Ukrainians still hold the city, which is a remarkable accomplishment in and of itself. Analysts are saying that Putin expects Kyiv to fall relatively quickly. That has not happened. You can see, though, you've got the forces advancing from the north. You also, though, have forces closing in from the east, which again creates a very dangerous and precarious situation from Kyiv. And just to give you a sense, guys, I mean, it's one thing to look at this on a map, makes it kind of sanitized. War is hell. And we have video that we can show you of an apartment building in Kyiv being hit by a missile and what this looks like on the ground. Let's go ahead and put this up here. I mean, that's people's homes. You know, this is the place people live. This is where they're raising their children. And to wake up in a war-torn city like this, people hunkered underground, you know, it is a really horrific situation.
Yeah, it's almost like out of a movie. I mean, you look at these things and you see the civilians in Kiev like sitting in the subway system, almost like in the Blitz during London from World War II. I mean, there's a million videos we could have shown you, but part of the reason why we always have to be careful, skeptical, and all that is that a lot of stuff is getting passed around online, misattributed, and all of that. So please, I'm imploring everyone in order to exercise some restraint, be careful about what you're sharing and all of these things, because, you know, these things will tug at your heartstrings. That video, even we can't even tell you whose it was. You know, none of these things are verifiable. But to the broader point, this is the most dangerous part of the war, possibly, because whenever you have a situation where, by all accounts, and Russian state media actually broadcasted that they could take Ukraine in 11 minutes or something like that. They said this only 2 months ago. Well, now you have several days. We have no idea how many people are dead. You know, the Ukrainians obviously want to put out an inflated number. They're claiming up to like 4,500 troops. Look, I mean, that's probably not true, but if it is, that's almost as many troops as we lost during the entire war in Iraq. So let's say it's even half. Well, that's a lot of people. I mean, that is a colossal loss of life in modern warfare. That's not something that we've seen in a long time.
And even the Russians did acknowledge that they had loss of life.
That's right. So they're acknowledging, they're never going to tell us the real number. And so in terms of figuring it out, it's going to be very difficult on our end. We can never give you a true death toll. But here is something which I was particularly concerned about, which is that Ramzan Kadyrov, who is the president of Chechnya, came out with a statement urging Putin in order to apply harsher tactics. Now that matters because famously Kadyrov and Putin during the 1999 war in Grozny carpet bombed the entire city, famously massacred civilians. So when they talk about use of harsher tactics, that's what they mean. I've also seen reports in the city of Kharkiv of cluster munitions. Were actually banned by international law, but were employed during the Syrian civil war and are a well-worn use in the Russian arsenal. Cluster munitions, just so people know, are horrific tools of war. I mean, they just scatter all throughout a city, go off. I mean, they're known for maiming and killing civilians. Yes, they have a quote-unquote military application, but use in urban warfare is barbaric and catastrophic. And that's something that we have seen at least one, confirmed report in the city of Kharkiv just this morning. So this is why it matters. Look, 5 days, as you said about the resurrection, the gamble of resurrection, that's only going to increase the pressure on Putin in order to save face, in order to try and bring a swift military victory. And the only way that this now seems possible, given the immense Ukrainian and heroic resistance, I do want to say that, of the soldiers there, and also of the president. I mean, we got to... Unbelievable, right? I mean, I think he's handled himself with great aplomb from the very beginning. I mean, always trying to keep the peace, telling Washington to calm down up until the very last second. But then, I mean, I can't imagine a Western politician standing tall and taking up arms in the capital city.
Yeah, we reportedly offered to get him out of there, and he said no.
He said, no, I need guns and ammo. Yeah, same with the mayor, Klitschko, also manning a machine gun. Even Poroshenko, who himself was a Putin tool, is in the streets with a bulletproof vest on and a Kalashnikov rifle. So just goes to show you how foolish of Putin's gambit has united the entire political class in Ukraine in a heroic struggle there. But we can and will see, most likely, significant more loss of civilian life.
Yes.
And for a lot of people who are cheering this on, the Ukrainian resistance, listen, I'm with there, but remember this. It took 3 weeks for America to take over Baghdad. Like, war is not 5 days. The opening days of a campaign are often messy. They think they're going to be able to get away with something. Now, if they're going to double down, and all signs point to that, that means a significant more loss of civilian life. The map that we had showed you previously showed different movements. The goal currently of Russia is in order to isolate Kiev, because that's where the government, the seat of power is, and also to cut the entire country into two, isolating any Western aid, cutting off and encircling the entire Ukrainian military in the east. And well, if those people fight, that'll be a fight to the death.
Listen, the big picture is that Russia is vastly militarily superior to Ukraine. I mean, those fundamental dynamics have not changed, even though the military campaign for Putin has not progressed as quickly and as easily as he perhaps thought. One of the tactical blunders that analysts have been pointing to has been Russia's failure to establish air superiority right out of the gates. And one of the things we're gonna bring to you all the movements that the EU is making. But one one of the extraordinary measures that they are taking, this is first time ever, is they are actually providing EU fighter jets to Ukraine at Ukraine's request. So that's another factor in all of this. But yes, an extraordinarily dangerous situation. And this all takes place against the backdrop of, their shelling and rocket attacks on Kharkiv and potentially killing massive amounts of Kharkiv civilians as Russia and Ukraine are actually meeting diplomatically. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it, you get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.